everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. Today we're going to do my presentation on artificial intelligence in the classroom. I hope you all enjoy my presentation, and here we go. So, a little bit of background information on AI. If you have been underneath a rock for, I don't know how many years now, hope you don't know what AI is, but in case you don't, I put a lovely definition here. And basically, it's an online program that just basically allows you to do things such as seeing, understanding, and translating languages, analyzing data, and making recommendations. And AI has been on the rise now for a pretty long time. I actually read an article that said it's actually been reported that an AI, specifically in education, has been like in existence for at least 40 years, which I was kind of surprised when I read that because I've never heard of AI in education for 40 years before. I always think AI online, but it's actually been reported that generated AI is reported to have the potential to transform education, which makes more sense because that's more online. And since now we're so grounded online, it just makes more sense. And I actually want to bring up some more statistics to go along with that too, which is kind of shocking that 44% of teens use AI to complete assignments, which I thought was pretty crazy to think. But at the same time, now in the world of age where everybody's online, that makes sense to me. And even like for us college students, like 53% of college students use ChatGPT to write a school essay, which if you wrote school essays, I mean, I'm not surprised that you used AI. Um, and due to the new technology, schools want to implement it into school. I mean, schools want to implement it. It's very, again, overwhelming. It's very challenging. It's very difficult to implement it, but they are trying to come up with different ways to implement it into the classroom. And today we're going to go over a possibility of a scenario of one of them happening in a school. So, just a little summary of this case. I did put in the discussion board a link to this entire slideshow. And if you want to read the 3 slide scenario, because it is pretty long, it would be in the discussion board. You just gotta click on the slides. You'll be able to get access to them. If not, please let me know. But this is the summary of the case. Basically what happened is that a school called Maplewood Elementary was trying to incorporate AI into the classroom. And what happened is in the first month of the program being implemented into the school, parents started to complain and have issues with the software. And one of the parents actually expressed concerns because they said that their child wasn't able to get the same access to everyone else's child in the class. And she was also concerned that some of the students were labeled as at risk or like potential. And she was very concerned about that, and she brought that up to the teacher, Mr. Thompson, and he was very like, okay, like you're fine, whatever, like you're okay, like ease her concerns basically. And then he started to notice that another student named Jamal was showing significant improvement in their basically knowledge for the year, but yet they're still given different material than like lower level material than the class, and on top of that they were labeled as at risk. And he was very concerned about that, and he started to wonder about the parents concern as well. So then after talking about it with Miss Lee, another teacher who had concerns because her students who were struggling with technology was being labeled as at risk, but they understood the content perfectly well, they brought it up with the administration to talk about the concerns, and they feared that it could be very objective towards others and brought up the concerns about Jamal and the parents' concerns as well. And that actually leads me right into my alt question. How schools embrace AI in their curriculum and to what extent? And then there's my lovely little dog looking, questioning this question. Come on, there he goes. Okay, so the primary stakeholders. Now, the first one are, of course, the teachers, because let's face it, they're the ones that's teaching the concept to the students. They're the one that's teaching the students all this knowledge, and it's affecting how they interact in the classroom. It's affecting basically everything. So teachers are definitely one of the primary stakeholders. Second is, of course, students, because teachers are teaching the students the content. The students are taking in all the content. If the robots teach, or the program, I should say, program and slash or the robot is teaching the students, then I mean, they're being affected too. And then last but not least, for primary, are of course the parents, because they're the one in this scenario that actually like embraced. They went through to the school and was like, hey, like we have or to the teacher and was like, Mr. Thompson was like, hey, we have concerns, like we want to make sure these are okay. So the parents are a major concern, and they are definitely a primary stakeholder in this case. Okay, secondary stakeholders. So, one of the secondary stakeholders are the school districts, because if you think about it, they're the ones that basically tell the schools which schools can have AI in their classrooms or like embrace them, and some who cannot. Like, for example, if you all remember my Ethics in the News article on how a school district is embracing AI into the classroom. Like they're the ones that are telling the schools, "Hey, we can use AI in the classroom." And then some of the schools I remember was I think it wasn't all the schools in the school district, if I recall, but school districts are the ones that basically tell them, "Hey, you can use it," or "Hey, you cannot." Like that's basically what happened in that scenario with the school district in New Jersey. I mean, that's basically what happened. Anyways, next one are the school administrators. Because in this case, they are the ones that's making this decision. Like, if they embrace AI into the classroom, to what extent? They're the ones that's making that decision. Like, they're the ones that's basically like, okay, we need to decide how are we going to do it, and in what capacity, and in what way. So they are the ones that are trying to decide this for everyone. Okay, so I have a little bit more. So the next stakeholder, which I didn't think of per se, but I did think about outside the box of this one, which is the developers of the AI program. In this case, since the schools only implement it for like a month, the AI program, the developers want to know, how is their program doing? They don't want to be left out of the box and like then get like a bunch of angry parents and a bunch of angry people being like, this program sucks, like later down the line. So they want to know what their program is like and how's it doing and how the results are. And whatever the schools decide affects how the developers make the program. I mean, whatever the school decides, that's basically what happens. And it's kind of interesting to think about, because the developers are the ones that make it, but yet they may not get a lot of feedback. But in this scenario, if they do get a lot of feedback, then it makes more sense. Um, and last but not least, which I love the little yay thing, is the school community. And the school community is very important in this case, but it is more secondary, because when the parents got together and started to discuss about it, that's like the school community there, like outside of the four walls of the school. Like they're the ones that can go out and actually make a difference, that can actually speak up about it more than the schools. Like the schools, if they want to speak about the AI program, the schools can go get their support and maybe get outside help. But in this case, like the school community can go out and talk about it and like maybe make a difference and maybe, do something about it if they don't like using the program, or their children using the program or not. So, anyways, those are my secondary stakeholders. Okay, so now it leads me to my three solutions that I came up with. With these solutions, you can go either or this scenario. You can say, hey, the school doesn't want to embrace it after a month. But in this case, my thinking was basically, here's my solutions on how, if they want to continue embracing the AI program, because it's only been a month. in this case. And the school will probably want to continue. And that would be great for them if they did, or not. I don't know. But these are my solutions. And you can totally agree or disagree, but these are the ones that I think would be beneficial. So the first one is make modifications to the AI system by creating a task force that would consist of parents, teachers, administrators, and students to review the AI system and give feedback on it. The second one is give more power control to the teachers for the AI software. And three, create a hybrid model for incorporating AI into the classroom to create collaboration between educators, parentheses teachers, and the AI system. Okay, so now we're in the language of ethics for solution number one. And the first one that actually supports it is consequentialist. And the reason is because they are determined by the outcome of what's going to happen with the AI program. So in this case, the group that the school administration will put together is going to experiment and explore with the program, and then it's going to provide the feedback to the school administration. And based on the feedback, that will help them determine what the next step is into whatever they want to do. And this actually violates the rule of university because it basically with the feedback that they get, it could end up like the people filling out the feedback, they could be overthinking it when filling out the questions or giving the school feedback, or it could even trying to think of the word. Oh yeah, question. It will make the school decision like question their own decisions and would just basically have an anxiety attack, the way I would describe it. Basically, that would end up happening. So that's why it violates it because it could end up having people overthink. And the one that actually does not support this solution is the ethics of care. And the ethics of care, the reason why it does not support it is because when the school makes a mistake, the group is not going to take accountability for their mistakes. They're not going to be responsible for them and they're not going to be accountable for their mistakes because they're not the ones that made the decisions. They are the ones that just give them the feedback. Like they're just, they just give feedback. And they're not going to be completeness about it because they're not the ones that made the decision, so they're not going to care about it. And they're not going to be attentiveness about it because they're not going to care about what the school makes. I mean, depending on what the decision is, like if it's something totally terrible, then they probably would. But in this scenario, they wouldn't. And they're not going to be responsiveness again, and they're not going to be responsible because they're not the one again who made those decisions. So, yeah. All right. So now we're in the second solution in the language of ethics. And the one that does not support this solution is consequentialist. And it's because in this solution, they are giving teachers the power to control the AI software. If they go ahead and make the decision, then they're possibly going to be overthinking their decisions on what like they assign to the students. Like it could be a possibility that could happen, but also too they may be questioning like their decisions and it just would not work out for them in the slightest. And the one that actually does line this up a lot more with this solution is non-consequentialist. And it's because they're going to make decisions based on rules and judgment. They're not going to worry about the consequences and what people think in this scenario. I mean, later down the line, if, let's say, I don't know, a parent comes in and complains that their student needs more time on X, Y, or on like reading and they're not getting it, then maybe the teacher would care. But majority of the time, they're not really going to care. They're just going to go ahead and make the judgment call and not worry about the consequences until later down the line. So, and the third one that actually or I say not the third one, but the third one on this list that I've listed here. Um, the second one that does not support this is equal opportunity. And I'm just going to throw in an example of this. In this scenario, or in the case, Mrs. Lee, her students, there were some students in her class that, as I stated earlier, struggled with using the technology but understood the content. Let's say Mrs. Lee spends more time with her students who struggle with the technology. Then what about the other students who don't struggle with the content? I mean, that doesn't struggle with the technology, but struggles with other things like content or like just needs help with other things. And she's spending more time with the students who are struggling with using the technology. Like that would be totally unfair, and that doesn't support an equal opportunity. And furthermore, like let's say, I don't know, because let's say this, Mrs. Lee decides to give the struggling technology students like easier material or like more like courses in their like the AI software to give them time to develop the technology. Or like decides, hey, like I'm gonna bump your material up or something. Like that would be totally unfair because it could be a student in that class that like worked really hard to understand it, to teach themselves to use the technology, and yet the other students who struggle with it is just given to them on a silver platter. And even going to Jamal's case, like he's showing significant improvement in his like learning style and learning techniques, but yet at the same time, he's like given at risk material or lower material. Like that's just totally unfair because um what was to say before I said totally unfair, and what I meant to say was basically what would happen is that Mr. Thompson may feel bad for him and may just bump up his test scores or may screw with his program to bump him up so that way he gets the same advantage as everybody else. Well, that's going to be unfair because number one, a student who was really struggling and showed improvement and actually got the material they're actually needing, they're going to be totally unfair. It's going to be totally biased and totally unfair for them because they worked really hard for that. Compared to Jamal, well, yes, he worked really hard, but yet at the same time, he was again given to it on a silver platter that he was able to get better material to reflect his improvement. Like, even though the program does not want that change. So, I mean, that's basically it. Right. Now on to the next one. No, next solution. All right, and now we're on our last solution and talking about the language of ethics. So, the first one that does not support this solution is non-consequentialist. And it's because in this scenario, since now teachers are going to be working with the AI system, they're not going to be thinking about judgment and they're not going to be thinking about rules. They're mainly going to be thinking about the outcome, and they're going to be thinking about like what's going to happen. They're mainly going to be thinking about that. They're not going to be thinking about judgment. They're not going to think about rules, and they're not going to be thinking about like, is it okay if I used it in my classroom? Because they're going to know that other teachers use it in their classroom. So that's why it doesn't support it. The other one that does not support this solution is rule of university. And it's because basically with this one, they simply just like, because simply it's just like their mindset when it comes to making these lessons. And I'm trying to think of this in the right words because I don't want to say it in the wrong way, but they want to think about, okay, is it okay if I give this to my student? Like with especially students with exceptionalities. Like, would it be acceptable if I give it to them this way, like the lesson, the activity this way? Would I be okay with it? And that's, in this case, they're sure, yes, they're going to be thinking about that in some way, but not really at the same time because they're not thinking about like, I mean, they could be thinking about all that when they make the lesson plans and whatnot, but they're mainly thinking about like the outcome and the results. they're not really thinking about, is it okay if I use it in my classroom type scenario in this way? Just because they know that everyone's going to be using it in that, and not in that way, but they're going to be using AI in their classroom. And the one language of ethics that supports this, all of this, is the ethics of care. And it's the ethics of care because if you think about it, the attentiveness, like if they make a mistake, they're going to accept it, and then they're going to be responsible for it because they're going to accept responsibility if they make a mistake with this software. It's basically based on their own judgment if they like to use the software in that way or not. It's based off of their own judgment. And then even with the completeness, like they're going to care about their action that they chose because they messed up. If they messed it up in the way they weren't supposed to use it, the AI software, then they're going to accept responsibility for it. And they're going to be quick. They're going to think about their solution right away, and they're going to be responsive, like right away, and they're going to hopefully fix it or not fix it. I mean, fix it. They're obviously going to fix it, but they may not fix it. Who knows? But that's basically why Ethics of Care supports this because it's based off of their own judgment. And if they screw up their own judgment, then they're going to be responsive. They're going to be attentive. They're going to be completeness. And they're going to be responsive for all of this because it's their mistake and they need to fix it if they mess it up. So, yeah. Okay. And last but not least is the Holy Grail, the defense. Defense. So in this scenario, and I hope nobody gets offended that I did it that way when I pronounced that word defense, but the solution number one, I feel like is the best one. And you may be wondering, hmm, why? Well, I feel like it's the best one because it allows the teachers, parents, and students and the administration to have a voice when it comes to making the decisions. Like solution number two, it's a good one. Like it allows teachers to use the AI, but it's not really giving them it's giving them a voice, but it's not really allowing everyone to use it in the same way. Like teachers could be offended if they use it in a different way or like the AI software in a different way or not. And then solution number three, like using it together, like that's just going to add more stress to the teacher workload. Like there was an article that I read. Actually, no, it was a video, excuse me. It was a video and it was based off of Texas, based from Texas. And there was a statistic that was like 13% within 1 year of teachers quit the profession because of stress, payload, and so on. And stress was the number one thing. And it was because they weren't getting paid that much and nobody's really looking to them. But stress was number two, and it was because of how much stress and workload they are put on. And it's causing them health issues and everything else. And in this solution, it still allows them to have that workload off of them and allows the system to kind of take over a little bit and relieve some of that stress they may have. And it also allows the main thing that I really support the defense is the voice, which I stated. And not only the voice for the school, but it also helps the administration and the creators of the software to make adjustments. And then also, too, like as I stated before, wouldn't it be nice if the creators or the developers would actually be love to be informed about any changes would need to be made? This solution allows it because the administrators can contact the district or contact the developers right away and be like, hey, like this is what we're experiencing with our AI software. Could you possibly change it or adapt to, what we need to do? This solution allows it. Like the other two, it doesn't allow you to have a voice. I feel like the number one thing, it doesn't have you allow you to have a voice when it comes to the school administration, and it doesn't allow you to have teamwork with everybody else on how to use it. Because AI in this world is very, trying to pick the right words. It's very like not unique. Well, it's very unique situation because people just don't know what to do because it's so like evolving. It's so like changing that people just don't know how to react and what to do. And with this solution, it allows everybody to be on the same page on what to do with the AI software. And it gives everybody a breakdown of what we feel like needs to happen with the software. So that's why I feel like, and my best solution is defense solution number one. And last but not least is my 5 questions that I have written. And yeah, so if you made it this long to the video, thank you so much. I'm so sorry for the very long video, but there's a lot to say with this topic, and there's a lot that need to be addressed with this. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I look forward to seeing all of your presentations. Alrighty, take care. Bye bye.